Okay, evolution.
First book was Signature in the Cell, which was a critique of what's called chemical evolution, which is the theories that attempt to explain the origin of the first life from simpler non-living chemicals, and an argument, conversely, for the intelligent design of life as evidenced by the digital code present in even the simplest one-celled organism. Second book, called Darwin's Doubt, looked at the question of the origin of new animal life, the first big burst of animal life in the history of life, known as the Cambrian explosion.
Yeah.
And in that book, I argued that not only do we have a problem of big gaps in the fossil record, the missing ancestral forms that should be there if the Darwinian picture of the history of life as the great branching tree is true, but we've got an even deeper problem. It's an engineering problem. How do you build these new forms of life, knowing, as we now do, that you need massive amounts of new code to build the parts that make the animals? And so there's an information problem that affects biological evolution every bit as much as chemical evolution. And the mechanism of natural selection acting on random genetic mutations does a nice job of explaining small-scale variations, but not large-scale, what are called morphological innovations, the generation of new form. And instead, those big bursts of information that attend the big bursts of biological form that we see in the fossil record suggest, again, evidence of intelligent design in the history of life. So that's the basic argument of that second book.
You would say you believe in microevolution, but not macroevolution?
Sure, that's a reasonable enough approximation.
Okay. So finch beaks, fine.
Fine.
Apes to men, no.
No, and not even where did the first birds come from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
In fact, there's even a problem at the deeper level of the origin of what are called protein folds. So there's microevolutionary change, but there are also, at a very fundamental level in biology, limitations that we see at work in how much change can take place. Mutations very quickly degrade established form, and that's long before you would get some new form arising. Just like in the computer world, you take a section of digital code for building a program or an operating system, and you start changing the zeros and ones, you're going to degrade to non-function that section of code long before you will have changed it enough to build a new section of code for building a new program or operating system. There are these big abysses in between peaks of function, and we see it. So what we see in life is evidence of profound discontinuity, not the kind of continuity that Darwin expected to see.
What's amazing is that, at least where I live in the Seattle area, if I said, "Hey, I don't believe we came from monkeys," you'd just be considered ridiculous. It almost seems to me that evolution is so accepted, which reminds me, there was a German philosopher, I can't remember, he once said, "We descended from apes, therefore let us love one another."
Well, but there's something going on in particular in a town, and we're in Redmond, Washington, right?
Yeah.
And I'm at the soccer sidelines watching my daughter play in middle school. Her coach is a pretty gruff fellow, but also was an architect level programmer from Microsoft. Comes up to me, saddles up while the game's going on. He knows what I work on. He says, "So what do these Darwinists think? The code just wrote itself?" And then he said, "Not at Microsoft." He laughed and walked away. So, people, I think the arguments are percolating. I think that's one of the reasons, among many, that the God question is reopening. We live in a world that's suffused with digital technology of our own making, and we know what it takes to build this stuff. And we've got, we wouldn't say the iPhone came about without Steve Jobs, but the inner workings of the cell are orders of magnitude more complex